Jason Statham had won the death race on Earth. He had fought, bled, and outmaneuvered some of the deadliest criminals ever put behind bars, securing what he thought was his long-awaited freedom. For a brief moment, he believed it was over. He had walked away from terminal prison, breathing in the crisp night air, finally tasting victory beyond the rusted walls of confinement. But freedom, as he would soon learn, was nothing more than a cruel illusion. 1 week. That was all the time he had before hell came knocking once again. It happened in the dead of night. The roar of engines, the crash of reinforced doors, the blinding flash of an energy pulse grenade. Jason barely had time to react before he was surrounded. Shadowed figures moved in tall, armored beings unlike anything from Earth. Their exoskeletons gleamed under the moonlight, their elongated faces hidden beneath biomechanical helmets. Their weapons hummed with a low, menacing frequency, and before he could so much as throw a punch, Jason felt his muscles lock, his vision blur, and then darkness. He awoke in a cell. Not like the rusted, concrete cages of terminal prison, this was something far worse. The walls pulsed with an eerie, bioluminescent glow, their surfaces resembling a fusion of metal and living tissue. The air was thick with an unnatural humidity, carrying the scent of oil, plasma burns, and something almost organic. The low murmurs of other prisoners reached his ears, alien voices, guttural growls, and distorted whispers. Titan 9. The name flashed in red letters on the hovering digital screen outside his cell. Jason had heard rumors, whispers from dying inmates back on Earth, stories of a floating hellscape beyond the reaches of human jurisdiction. A prison that wasn't run by governments or corporations but by something far worse. A game. A movement caught his eye. A drone, spherical in shape with a mechanical eye that flickered to life, scanning him head to toe. A crackle of static, then a voice slithered through the speakers. Frank Castle. No, not anymore. Here, you will be known as Shadow Fang. Welcome to the grandest arena in the galaxy. There is only one way out, victory. The voice belonged to Warden Ziffer. His face materialized in a flickering hologram before Jason's cell. Half organic, half machine, his cybernetic enhancements pulsed with glowing energy, his artificial eye rotating with a cold, analytical precision. Jason clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. He knew that voice. It belonged to a butcher, a slaver of men, a collector of warriors to feed the ever-hungry machine of death that was Titan 9's intergalactic death race. Before he could say a word, the cell door hissed open. 2 towering guards, their bodies encased in black, insect-like armor, seized him by the arms and dragged him forward. Jason didn't resist, not yet. First, he needed to understand what he was dealing with. As he was hauled through the prison's corridors, his mind absorbed every detail: the sharpened steel spikes along the walls, the electrified barricades separating inmates, the mechanical sentries patrolling overhead. He wasn't the only one here. Hundreds, if not thousands, of prisoners were locked within Titan 9's depths. Some bore scars, others missing limbs, cybernetic implants replacing what was lost. But they all shared the same hollow, haunted stare. Survivors of the race. Then he saw her. A woman was being dragged along the same path beside him. But she wasn't human. Not entirely. Her silver-white hair cascaded down her back, glimmering under the prison's artificial lighting. Her emerald green eyes glowed faintly, slitted pupils flickering with barely restrained defiance. Her skin, though close to human, bore a faint luminescence, as though infused with stardust itself. She met his gaze with a look that was neither fear nor submission. A warrior's stare. Name? Jason asked. The woman smirked despite their predicament. Lyra. And yours? Jason. Not anymore, she mused. They call you Shadow Fan now? Jason chuckled darkly. Yeah? Well, they can shove that name up there. Before he could finish, they were shoved into a massive chamber, the race assembly hall. Before them stretched a vast hangar, filled with war machines disguised as race cars. Engines roared with unnatural energy. Some hovered, some skittered on reinforced treads, others bore massive plasma cannons, razor-sharp spikes, or segmented armor capable of withstanding direct missile impacts. The pilots, criminals, warlords, and gladiators from every corner of the universe stood beside their respective vehicles, preparing for the carnage ahead. Ziffer's hologram towered over them all, projected onto the chamber's colossal screens. Each racer will be assigned a navigator, he announced, his mechanical voice dripping with sadistic amusement. These navigators will assist in piloting, strategizing, and if necessary keeping you alive. Jason felt a shove, forcing him forward. Lyra stepped beside him, her arms crossed. Well, she said. Looks like we're partners. Jason sized her up. You any good? Lyra's expression didn't waver. Good enough to survive. Better than most. Good. Jason turned his attention back to the rows of monstrous vehicles before them. Because I don't intend on dying in this shithole. The hangar's walls trembled as massive doors slid open, revealing the abyss beyond. A colossal racetrack stretched into the void of space, weaving through asteroid fields, black holes, and alien landscapes teeming with deadly traps. Hovering turrets lined the edges, primed to obliterate anyone who lagged behind. The track itself twisted unnaturally, defying physics, shifting and morphing as if alive. Jason exhaled slowly. This was unlike any race he had ever fought in before. Lyra climbed into the cockpit of their assigned vehicle, the Doombringer. A beast of a machine. Reinforced Dura-steel plating. Twin-mounted plasma cannons. An electromagnetic shield generator. And under the hood? A reactor core pulsing with energy Jason didn't recognize. You ever drive one of these before? Jason asked, slipping into the driver's seat. No, Lyra admitted. But I know how it works. And I don't miss. Jason smirked. Good. Let's keep it that way. The countdown began. 10. The engines roared. 9. Jason gripped the controls, muscles tensing. 8. Lyra's fingers hovered over the weapons panel. 7. Ziffer's voice echoed. Remember, only the strong survive. 6. Jason glanced at Lyra. She returned his gaze, something unspoken passing between them. 5. The other racers snarled, engines screaming with anticipation. 4. The track twisted, a deadly gauntlet awaiting them. 3. Jason clenched his jaw. Let's give 'em hell. 2. Lyra smirked. Try to keep up. 1. A deafening explosion of light. Go. And just like that, the race for survival had begun. Jason's knuckles tightened around the steering controls of the Doombringer as the countdown reached 0. The entire hangar trembled as the reinforced launch pads beneath each vehicle gave way, catapulting the racers into the void of space. The shockwave slammed him against the seat, his vision briefly flickering as G-forces clawed at his body. Lyra, seated beside him in a navigator's seat, barely flinched. Her fingers danced across the holographic controls, activating the vehicle's defensive matrix. A blue shield shimmered into existence around them, absorbing the initial turbulence. The racetrack loomed ahead, a twisting, impossible structure suspended in the darkness of the cosmos. It defied physics, bending around celestial anomalies, weaving through asteroid fields, and disappearing into warp tunnels that led to who knew where. Bright neon barriers marked the edges, crossing them meant instant death. And behind them? A pack of bloodthirsty killers, each piloting their own weaponized death machines. "Hold on," Jason growled, slamming the throttle forward. The Doombringer's twin thrusters erupted, launching them into the abyss. The first segment of the race was a descent through the gauntlet, a kilometer-long drop that spiraled through an asteroid belt filled with automated plasma turrets. The moment they entered, crimson bolts of energy crisscrossed the track, obliterating anything in their path. A vehicle to their right, an insectoid-like cruiser piloted by a six-armed alien, veered too wide. The nearest turret locked onto it instantly, unleashing a barrage of concentrated fire. The cruiser exploded in a violent blast, debris scattering in all directions. "Stay in the kill lanes," Lyra instructed, her voice sharp. She had mapped the turret patterns in seconds, calculating the safest route. "At just 3 degrees left now?" Jason obeyed without hesitation. The Doombringer banked hard, dodging a barrage that would have torn through their shielding. Another racer wasn't so lucky. The mechanical behemoth behind the main tank-like contraption with spiked wheels took a direct hit, flipping end over end before being swallowed by the vacuum of space. "Damn," Jason muttered. "We keep this up, we might actually make it out of here alive." Lyra smirked but kept her focus. "Don't get cocky. This is just round 1. The next challenge was the Plasma Rift, a stretch of the track that ran along the edge of a superheated nebula. Here, racers not only had to contend with one another but also with the gravitational anomalies that randomly distorted the track's shape. Ahead, Jason spotted a heavily armored hovercraft gaining on them. Its pilot, a reptilian brute with serrated fangs, grinned maniacally as he deployed a harpoon launcher. The metallic claw shot out, latching onto the Doombringer's left flank. "We're snagged," Lyra warned, already rerouting power to the rear thrusters. Jason gritted his teeth. Not for long. He jerked the wheel hard right, using the gravitational pull of the nebula to spin them around. The sudden maneuver caused the tether to snap taut before yanking the reptilian's vehicle off course and straight into an asteroid. The impact turned his ride into a fiery wreck. Lyra exhaled. "Nice move." Jason smirked. "Told you I don't intend on dying here?" As the race progressed, Jason and Lyra's partnership began to solidify. They communicated in short bursts, trusting each other's instincts. The battlefield wasn't just the track, it was the racers themselves. Alliances were formed and broken in seconds, with betrayals happening mid-turn. And through it all, Jason noticed something about Lyra. She wasn't just skilled. She was coldly efficient. She anticipated attacks before they happened, predicted shifts in the track before the AI announced them. There was a precision to her movements, a deadliness in her calculations. And then there were her eyes. Green, glowing, intense. He had seen that look before. It was the look of someone who had lost too much but refused to die without a fight. With half the competitors already eliminated, the remaining racers entered the quantum spiral, a series of warp gates that teleported them across different sections of space. But something was wrong. Lyra's hands clenched the console. "Wait. The exit trajectory is being altered." Jason narrowed his eyes. "By who?" Before she could answer, the entire track glitched. The warp gates flickered, their coordinates shifting erratically. Racers that entered them emerged not ahead but behind. Others were teleported directly into hazards, flung into black holes, ejected into asteroid storms. Jason's grip on the controls tightened. "Ziffer." The warden's voice crackled through their comms. "A little incentive for my audience. The stronger the odds against you, the greater the spectacle. Jason cursed. Bastards rigging the game. Lyra exhaled slowly. Then we play smarter. She manually overrode their gate's trajectory, recalculating their exit point. The moment they entered the portal, Jason felt his stomach lurch before they emerged right in the heart of the battlefield. Directly in front of the leading racer. A cybernetic warlord known only as Galactic. His vehicle, a towering death machine covered in plasma cannons, barreled toward them at full speed. Jason barely had time to react before the collision alert blared. Hold on. He slammed the controls, jerking the Doombringer into a tight barrel roll. Galactic's war machine narrowly missed them, its cannons firing in frustration. But Jason wasn't done. Using the momentum, he swung behind the warlord's vehicle, locking onto its weak point, the exposed power core beneath its rear plating. Lyra now. Lyra hit the trigger. A barrage of electromagnetic missiles launched from their undercarriage, streaking toward Galactic. The warlord barely had time to curse before the projectiles struck, ripping through his defenses. His vehicle exploded in a brilliant flash of blue fire. Jason and Lyra surged past the wreckage, their names flashing at the top of the leaderboard. As the dust settled, the finish line loomed ahead. Only a handful of racers remained. But Jason knew better than to think it was over. This was just the beginning. He glanced at Lyra. For the first time, her expression had softened. Just a little. Not bad, she admitted. Jason smirked. You too. For a brief second, in the midst of chaos, something unspoken passed between them. But before either could say another word, the next stage began. And the real nightmare was about to start. The engines screamed through the vacuum of space, an unnatural roar as the Doombringer rocketed forward, narrowly dodging a cascade of plasma fire. Jason gritted his teeth, the force of acceleration pressing him back into the cockpit seat as Lyra expertly navigated the complex HUD interface, rerouting shield power to the front as an onslaught of laser bolts seared the path ahead. The track was chaos incarnate, a twisting gauntlet of burning meteors, sharp turns that defied gravity, and high-speed death traps primed to obliterate anything less than perfect precision. The first curve came fast and brutal, a 90-degree left turn with zero guardrails. Jason slammed the brakes, shifting the Doombringer into a sideways drift as Lyra simultaneously activated the magnetic stabilizers, preventing them from spiraling into the abyss. Behind them, a monstrous quadrupedal racer, more a tank than a vehicle, wasn't so lucky. The beast piloting it, a reptilian brute clad in spiked armor, miscalculated the turn. With a guttural roar, his machine skidded, tumbling over the edge of the track, vanishing into the black void. No explosion. No wreckage. Just pure, merciless erasure. That's one down, Jason muttered, gripping the wheel tighter. And about 20 more to go. Lyra shot back, her fingers dancing over the control panel. We need to boost forward, the next section has turret arrays. If we're caught lagging. A blinding flash illuminated the cockpit as a pulse blast detonated just to the right. Jason didn't hesitate, he twisted the wheel, jerking the vehicle sideways to avoid the cascade of incoming fire. Ahead, the racetrack narrowed into an arched tunnel lined with automated sentry turrets, their barrels tracking anything that moved. The racers ahead of them weren't so fortunate. One by one, those who had surged forward too recklessly were reduced to flaming wreckage, their smoldering remains crashing against the walls of the tunnel. The track, it seemed, had no room for amateurs. Shields at 40%. Lyra warned. We take one more direct hit, and we're done. Then we won't get hit. Jason's grip tightened. Can you disable those turrets? Lyra's fingers flew over the console. I can overload their targeting system for a few seconds, but it won't last long. That's all I need. Do it. A moment's hesitation. Then, with a flick of her wrist, Lyra executed the override command. For a brief instant, the turrets flickered confused, recalibrating. Jason seized the opportunity, slamming the accelerator. The Doombringer surged forward, weaving between the wreckage of fallen racers as the tunnel narrowed into a barely there exit. The moment they cleared the tunnel, the turrets roared back to life, resuming their merciless slaughter behind them. Lyra exhaled sharply. We made it. Jason smirked. We're still alive. That's a start. But there was no time to celebrate. The next stretch of the track was worse, a zero-gravity free fall through a meteor field, with no clear path forward. The remaining racers scattered, each taking their own desperate route through the chaos. Some accelerated wildly, hoping to outrun the danger. Others braked, searching for a safer way through. Jason had a different plan. Brace yourself. His voice was calm, measured. Lyra barely had time to question him before he slammed the Doombringer into a near-vertical spin, dodging a speeding chunk of rock the size of a battleship. The vehicle twisted through the wreckage, spiraling between meteors as Jason's instincts took over. He wasn't just reacting, he was anticipating, predicting the debris' movements before they even happened. Lyra's eyes widened. She had studied hundreds of pilots, both human and alien alike, but none had ever possessed such raw, unfiltered skill. Jason wasn't just racing. He was hunting his way through the chaos, bending it to his will. And in that moment, for the first time, she believed. They weren't just surviving this race. They were going to win it. The free fall ended with a sudden gravity shift, slamming them back onto the track. Jason barely had time to adjust before the next wave of competitors came charging from behind. A sleek, crimson racer outfitted with plasma blades bore down on them, its pilot a cybernetically enhanced mercenary with glowing red eyes fixated solely on their destruction. Without hesitation, he activated his weaponized front fender, sending a shockwave of energy toward them. Jason twisted the wheel, barely avoiding the strike as the mercenary kept pressing forward, matching every evasive maneuver with deadly precision. We can't outrun him. Lyra shouted. His vehicle's lighter, he's gaining too much speed. Jason's eyes narrowed. Then we don't run. With a calculated flick of his wrist, he jerked the Doombringer into a hard right, slamming its armored plating into the Crimson Racer. The impact sent a tremor through both vehicles, but Jason wasn't done. He spun the wheel again, this time twisting into a controlled skid that forced the mercenary into the path of an incoming meteor. There was a brief moment of realization in the mercenary's glowing eyes. Then impact. The Crimson Racer was obliterated, fragments scattering into the abyss. Lyra blinked, stunned. That was one less problem, Jason finished, shifting his focus back to the track ahead. Now, where's first place? Lyra checked the leaderboard flashing across the console. Up ahead. 2 racers left. Both of them are veterans. One's a warlord from the Andron system, the other's a sentient AI with a combat-dedicated core. Jason grinned. Perfect. As the final stretch of the race came into view, the battlefield ahead erupted into pure carnage. Explosions lit up the void, debris rained from the sky, and the 2 leading racers fought like cornered beasts. It was the last lap. And Jason Statham never lost the last lap. The Doombringer shot through the wreckage-strewn track like a beast unleashed, its engines roaring as Jason pushed it to its absolute limits. Lyra's fingers danced across the control panel, constantly adjusting shields, weapons, and thrusters in response to the ever-changing battlefield. This wasn't just a race anymore, it was a war zone. Ahead, the two remaining competitors were locked in a violent struggle for first place. The Andron warlord's vehicle, a monstrous, heavily armored juggernaut with twin plasma cannons mounted on its sides, fired relentlessly at the sleek, almost spectral form of the sentient AI racer. The AI's vehicle, an obsidian black hovercraft with a shifting, liquid metal chassis, moved like a phantom, dodging each shot with inhuman precision. Jason gritted his teeth. He had faced tough opponents before, but never something like this. "What's the plan?" Lyra asked, her voice tense but steady. Jason smirked. "We'll let them destroy each other, then take out whoever's left." Lyra glanced at him, her green eyes gleaming under the dim cockpit lights. "And if neither of them takes the other out?" Jason chuckled. "Then we improvise." As they neared the battlefield, the AI pilot suddenly shifted tactics. Instead of dodging, it turned sharply and raced directly toward them. Jason's reflexes kicked in as he swerved hard to the left, just barely missing a collision. The AI's vehicle passed so closely that the hulls scraped, sparks flying in the void. A moment later, the black racer spun backward, maintaining speed while aiming its twin energy turrets directly at them. "Lyra!" Jason barked. "I got it!" Lyra snapped, slamming her palm against the control panel. The Doombringer's front-mounted autocannons roared to life, unleashing a hail of armor-piercing rounds. The AI, in an instant, vanished, its liquid metal frame splitting into dozens of shifting fragments that swirled around their shots before reforming on the other side, completely unharmed. "Son of a," Jason swore. "That thing's not just fast, it's cheating." "No," Lyra corrected, rapidly scanning the AI's telemetry. "It's adapting. Learning. Every move we make, it calculates and counters." Jason clenched his jaw. That changes things. He wasn't just fighting a machine, he was fighting a machine that got smarter every second. A new warning blared across the dashboard. "Missile lock detected." Jason's heart pounded. "Where?" Lyra's fingers flew across the screen. "Not the AI, it's the warlord. He's targeting both of us." The hulking Andron vehicle had repositioned itself behind them, its twin plasma cannons retracting as a massive warhead launcher emerged from its chassis. The warlord inside, a towering brute with 4 arms and a cybernetic eye, grinned wickedly through the comms screen. "Run, insects! Run!" The missile launched, a glowing streak of death hurtling toward them. Jason didn't hesitate. "Hold on." He yanked the controls, sending the Doombringer into a rapid downward dive. The missile followed, its tracking systems locked onto their heat signature. Lyra's hands blurred over the console, diverting engine power to throw off the targeting systems. The AI racer, meanwhile, did not run. Instead, it performed the unthinkable. It turned toward the missile, its liquid metal body shifting as if calculating something impossible. Jason's eyes widened. "No way it's gonna." The AI's vehicle split apart, letting the missile pass harmlessly through its form before reforming behind it. Then, in a stunning move, it redirected its energy weapons not at Jason, not at the missile, but at the warlord's vehicle. The plasma cannons erupted in flames. The warlord's triumphant grin vanished as his own missile, suddenly unshielded, received a direct hit. The explosion was instant and devastating, tearing the Andron war machine into 1,000 fiery shards. Jason let out a low whistle. "Remind me never to underestimate a machine." But there was no time to celebrate. The AI wasn't finished. With the warlord gone, it refocused its attention entirely on them. Lyra's voice was sharp. "We have to end this now." Jason nodded. "I need you to find its power source. Lyra's eyes flicked over the data feeds. Its core is shifting constantly, like the rest of its body. But, she hesitated, then pointed. There. When it absorbs damage, it momentarily stabilizes in the cockpit area. Jason's mind raced. Then we force it to take a hit. Lyra's gaze met his. She understood. Jason did the unthinkable. He slowed down. The AI, seeing an opening, took the bait. It lunged, its liquid frame stretching forward, forming a blade appendage aimed directly at the Doombringer's cockpit. Jason waited. Waited. Then, he slammed the brakes. The AI overshot its mark just as Lyra unleashed a concentrated blast from their forward cannons. The plasma pierced through the AI's shifting form, and in that split second its core was exposed. Jason didn't waste it. He fired everything. The Doombringer's weapons roared, every ounce of energy channeled into one devastating assault. The AI racer shuddered violently as its frame flickered, trying desperately to reform, but it was too late. It exploded into a shimmering cloud of energy, fragments of its liquid metal body scattering into the void. Silence followed. Then the race alarms blared. Victory! Jason exhaled, his grip on the controls finally loosening. Lyra slumped back in her seat, breathing hard. They had won. But Jason knew better than anyone. The real fight had only just begun. Jason barely had a moment to revel in the victory before the adrenaline wore off, leaving a deep exhaustion settling into his bones. As the announcer's voice declared their triumph, the track's shifting obstacles began to retract, and a massive hangar door opened at the far end of the battlefield. The surviving racers were funneled through, their battered machines limping toward a temporary reprieve. Inside, the so-called resting chambers of Titan IX were anything but luxurious. The facility was a sprawling maze of steel corridors, dimly lit by flickering lights that barely held back the oppressive darkness. Despite the brutal conditions, this was the only moment between races where competitors could catch their breath, repair their machines, and, if they were lucky, gather intel on their next opponents. Jason guided the Doombringer into its designated bay, the engines sputtering as they powered down. He exhaled, unstrapping himself from the cockpit as Lyra stretched her arms, her fingers still twitching from the high-intensity maneuvers she had executed. "You alive?" Jason asked, glancing at her. Lyra smirked, though the exhaustion in her eyes was unmistakable. "Barely. That AI fight was a damn nightmare." A group of mechanics swarmed the vehicle, already beginning repairs. A stocky man with cybernetic arms grunted as he inspected the scorched plating. "You're pushing this heap harder than it's meant to go," he muttered. "Keep it up, and you won't have anything left to race with." Jason shrugged. "It's not like I can afford to hold back." The mechanic shook his head and got to work. Jason turned to Lyra. "Come on. Let's get something to eat before we pass out." The cafeteria was a grimy, overcrowded mess hall filled with a murmur of hushed conversations and the occasional burst of violent laughter. Every racer there had survived at least one round of carnage, and it showed bandages covered fresh wounds, cybernetic limbs whirred as they adjusted, and the air smelled of sweat, blood, and cheap protein rations. Jason and Lyra grabbed trays of synthetic food and found a relatively quiet corner to sit. As they ate, Lyra leaned in slightly. "You noticed how they are bringing in new racers mid-competition? That AI wasn't supposed to be in the lineup." Jason nodded, chewing thoughtfully. "Ziffer's playing with us. He's changing the rules as we go." A shadow loomed over them before they could continue. Jason tensed as a figure slid into the seat across from the Maline woman with piercing golden eyes and jagged scars lining her throat. "Shadow Fang," she murmured, addressing Jason by his race name. "You've made enemies." Lyra stiffened. "Who's asking?" The woman's lips curled into something that was neither a smile nor a snarl. "Name's Vanya. I used to be in your position until I learned the truth about Titan 9. Jason narrowed his eyes. "And what truth is that?" Vanya tapped a finger against the table. "This isn't just about survival. It's a recruitment ground. The best racers, the ones who keep winning, they don't just get their freedom. They get an offer one they can't refuse." Lyra frowned. "An offer from who?" Vanya glanced around as if making sure no one was listening. "From Ziffer's handlers. The syndicate running this whole show. They take the champions and turn them into something worse than prisoners. They make them hunters." Jason felt a chill creep up his spine. The thought of becoming like Cronus hunting down new blood for sport was sickening. "What happens if you refuse?" Vanya's golden eyes darkened. "No one refuses." A long silence stretched between them before Lyra spoke again. "Why are you telling us this?" Vanya stood. "Because I escaped. And if you want to get out of here alive, you'll need more than just driving skills. You'll need an exit plan." She turned and disappeared into the crowd, leaving Jason and Lyra with more questions than answers. Jason exhaled, rubbing his face. "Great. So now it's not just a death race. It's a recruitment drive for assassins." Lyra leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "We need to start thinking long term. If we don't, we might win this race only to lose everything afterward." Jason nodded, his mind already turning over possibilities. They needed a way out before it was too late. Jason leaned against the cold metallic wall of the dimly lit maintenance bay, his mind racing through the revelations Vanya had just dropped on them. Titan 9 wasn't just a prison, it was a recruitment ground for killers. Every champion who survived wasn't granted freedom. They were repurposed into enforcers, assassins, and war machines for the shadowy entity that controlled the facility. There was no way out, at least not the way he had initially thought. Lyra sat cross-legged on a pile of discarded engine parts, her wounds from the previous race still fresh. A thin line of dried blood traced the side of her forehead, and despite the exhaustion weighing on her, her eyes burned with something close to determination. Jason had seen that look before, back when he was still racing on Earth, back when winning meant something. "What's the plan?" Lyra asked, her voice hoarse but steady. Jason exhaled. "We need to get off this station before they turn us into monsters." Vanya crossed her arms, her cybernetic fingers clicking softly. "Easier said than done. This place is built like a fortress. Every exit is monitored, and even if you get past that, the docking bay is crawling with sentinels. You'll be dead before you even reach a ship." Lyra smirked. "That's a lot of ifs and probablys." Vanya's gaze hardened. "I've been here longer than you two. I've seen what happens when people try to escape. They don't just die. They get repurposed." Jason clenched his fists. He wasn't about to become one of Ziffer's mindless killers. "There has to be a way," he muttered. Then, a thought struck him. "You said Titan 9 recruits the strongest, right? What if we weren't just trying to escape? What if we shut the whole damn thing down?" Vanya and Lyra both stared at him. "That's suicide," Vanya finally said. Jason shrugged. "We're dead either way. But if we take out their main control center, we cripple the entire operation." Lyra's expression darkened. "That means getting through the security levels. And the only ones with clearance are Ziffer's top enforcers. Jason smirked. Then I guess we'll have to earn their trust, before we tear them apart. The next race came sooner than expected. The air inside the underground hangar was thick with tension. Engines roared, weapons systems hummed, and the scent of oil and death clung to everything. Jason and Lyra stood beside the Doombringer, their war machine now fully upgraded. Plasma cannons gleamed under the harsh artificial lights, and the reinforced plating gave it an almost menacing aura. Lyra ran a hand along the hood. If we're going to do this, we need to make sure we win. Jason cracked his knuckles. Winning is what I do. As they climbed into their respective seats, a deep, mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. Racers, prepare for deployment. The floor beneath them rumbled. Their vehicle, along with the others, was lifted onto a massive platform. As the countdown began, Jason flexed his fingers around the controls, his heart hammering against his ribs. Then, the lights flashed green. The race was a bloodbath from the start. Explosions tore through the starting line as rival racers unleashed a barrage of missiles. Jason swerved, narrowly avoiding a blast that sent a nearby vehicle flipping end over end. Lyra was already firing, taking down enemies with precision shots. 3 on your left, she called. Jason cut the wheel hard, slamming one of the opponents into a wall of spikes. The other 2 swerved to avoid the wreckage, but Lyra finished them off with a quick blast from the plasma turrets. Nice shot, Jason muttered. No time for compliments, she shot back. The track twisted into a near vertical climb, forcing Jason to gun the thrusters. Enemy fire rained down from above, but the Doombringer's reinforced armor held. As they crested the top, they came face to face with Cronus. The ex-champion's vehicle was a monstrosity, all sharp angles and thick plating. Twin cannons swiveled toward them, and Jason barely had time to react before plasma fire scorched the side of their car. Cronus, Jason snarled. Figures. The massive vehicle slammed into them, sending the Doombringer skidding. Jason fought for control while Lyra returned fire. Their shots barely dented Cronus's armor. We need to outmaneuver him, Lyra said. We can't outgun him. Jason grinned. Then let's dance. He veered sharply toward a narrow passageway, forcing Cronus to follow. The path was treacherous, lined with unstable debris and sudden drops. Jason navigated through it effortlessly, but Cronus's bulkier vehicle struggled. Seeing his chance, Jason activated the Doombringer's grappling hooks, latching onto an overhead beam. With a flick of the controls, he yanked the beam down just as Cronus approached. The structure collapsed, trapping Cronus beneath the wreckage. Jason didn't wait to see if he survived. He gunned the engine, racing toward the finish line. They crossed first, but there was no time to celebrate. Ziffer's voice crackled over the intercom. Well done, Shadow Fang. You've proven your worth once again. Jason glanced at Lyra. I hate that name. She smirked. Get used to it. Later that night, in the shadows of the maintenance bay, Vanya appeared. You two really know how to cause a scene. Jason leaned against the Doombringer, arms crossed. Did we get their attention? Vanya nodded. Ziffer has taken an interest in you. You might be able to get close enough to strike. Lyra exhaled. Then we stick to the plan. We take out the control center, disable security, and find a way off this rock. Vanya hesitated. There's something else. Cronus isn't dead. Jason clenched his jaw. Of course he isn't. Vanya's eyes narrowed. He's not just coming for revenge. He knows what you're planning. And he's not going to let you get away. Jason's mind raced. If Cronus knew, that meant Zephyr might know. They were running out of time. Lyra met his gaze. Then we make our move. Fast. Jason exhaled, the weight of their mission pressing down on him. He had spent his whole life outrunning death. But now, for the first time, he wasn't just running, he was fighting back. Jason barely had time to process the implications of Vanya's warning before alarms blared across Titan IX. The deep red emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the steel corridors as mechanical security drones emerged from hidden compartments, weapons primed. Zephyr knew. Or at the very least, he suspected. Move! Lyra shouted, already grabbing her rifle as she ducked behind a stack of discarded engine parts. Jason followed her lead, drawing his sidearm while Vanya accessed a nearby console, fingers flying over the keys. They are locking down the docking bay, she cursed. Cronus must have tipped them off. We need to move now or we'll never get out of here. Jason exchanged a quick glance with Lyra. There was no hesitation in her eyes, only that same fierce determination that had carried them through every death-defying race so far. What's our way out? He asked, keeping his voice low as mechanical footsteps echoed closer. Vanya pulled up a holographic display of the station's schematics. We can't go through the main hangar anymore. Security's too tight. But there's a maintenance tunnel running parallel to the racing track. It leads straight to the engine core. If we can get there, we might be able to overload the power systems and shut down the security grid. That's our window. And if we can't shut it down? Lyra asked. Vanya hesitated. Then we improvise. Jason sighed. Fantastic. Just the way I like it. Without another word, they moved. Vanya led the way, her cybernetic enhancements allowing her to navigate the station's internal systems, overriding security checkpoints and jamming surveillance feeds as they sprinted through the industrial underbelly of Titan IX. The air was thick with the scent of burning metal and fuel, and every flickering light overhead cast ominous, shifting shadows. They reached the maintenance tunnel entrance just as the first wave of security drones rounded the corner. Bullets and plasma bolts ricocheted off the metal walls, showering sparks across the dimly lit corridor. Jason spun on his heel, raising his weapon and taking out two drones with precise shots to their sensor arrays. Lyra followed suit, her rifle's energy blasts tearing through the advancing machines with deadly accuracy. Go! Jason barked as he covered their retreat. Vanya was already through the access panel, pulling up a secondary firewall to slow down reinforcements. Lyra slid in after her, with Jason right behind. The tunnel was narrow, lined with exposed wiring and steaming pipes that hissed ominously as they brushed past. They moved quickly, the distant rumble of the station's reactors growing louder with every step. The heat was oppressive, sweat dripping down Jason's face as he pushed forward. Vanya stopped abruptly, motioning for silence. She pointed ahead to where the tunnel widened into a cavernous space Titan IX's main engine core. A massive fusion reactor pulsed with energy in the center, surrounded by towering conduits and control terminals. But more importantly, Cronus was there, waiting. The ex-champion stood at the edge of the platform, his massive frame illuminated by the blue glow of the reactor. His cybernetic enhancements glinted under the light, and his voice was distorted by the mechanical modulator in his throat. I told you, Jason. There is no escape. Jason tightened his grip on his weapon. Yeah? Well, I've never been great at following rules. Cronus didn't waste words. He lunged, faster than any machine his size should have been. Jason barely dodged in time as a massive cybernetic fist crashed into the floor where he had stood. The impact sent a shockwave through the platform, shaking the entire structure. Lyra opened fire, but Cronus shrugged off the shots, his reinforced plating absorbing the damage. He grabbed a nearby railing and tore it free, swinging it like a makeshift club. Jason ducked under the first swing and countered with a shot to Cronus's knee joint. Sparks flew, but the machine man didn't slow. "Vanya!" Jason shouted. "Shut it down." Vanya was already at the control panel, working frantically to override the system. "Almost there. Just keep him busy." Easier said than done. Cronus was relentless, his strikes faster and more precise than before. Jason dodged and weaved, using every bit of agility he had, but the confined space left little room to maneuver. Then, just as Cronus raised the railing for a killing blow, Lyra leaped onto his back, jamming a combat knife into the base of his neck. Cronus roared, staggering. Jason seized the opportunity, lunging forward and slamming his own knife into the exposed joint of Cronus's arm. The machine jerked, sparks and oil spurting from the wound. With a final desperate heave, Lyra twisted her blade, severing crucial neural connections. Cronus shuddered, then collapsed. Jason took a breath. That was way too close. "Not over yet," Vanya called. "Security grid is down, but we have 2 minutes before backup arrives." They didn't waste a second. Racing back through the tunnel, they emerged near the emergency docking bay, now unguarded thanks to Vanya's sabotage. A single fighter ship sat waiting, its engines still warm from a recent patrol. Jason sprinted up the ramp, sliding into the pilot's seat as Lyra took the weapons console and Vanya plugged into the navigation. "Strap in," Jason warned as he powered up the thrusters. "This is gonna be rough." The ship roared to life, launching from the station just as alarms blared anew. Automated turrets swiveled toward them, but Lyra was already firing, taking them out before they could lock on. Titan IX shrank behind them as they punched through the outer defense grid, dodging incoming fire with expert precision. Then, just as they cleared the final blockade, the comms crackled to life. "You think this is over?" Ziffer's voice rasped. "You have no idea what you've started." Jason exhaled. "Yeah, well, screw you too." He cut the transmission and engaged the hyperdrive. With a final burst of energy, the ship shot into the void, leaving Titan IX and their old lives behind. For now. Because Jason knew this wasn't over. It was just beginning. The swirling vortex of hyperspace stretched endlessly before them, a brilliant tunnel of shifting blues and purples. Jason slumped back in the pilot's seat, his hands still gripping the controls as if letting go would send them careening back into chaos. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he allowed himself to breathe. "We made it," Lyra murmured from the weapons console, her voice laced with exhaustion. Vanya, still connected to the ship's navigation system, nodded but did not look up. Her cybernetic implants flickered faintly as data streamed across her interface. "We're clear for now, but that won't last." Ziffer doesn't take failure lightly. Jason rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of their escape pressed down on him. "Tell me something I don't know." A tense silence settled over the cockpit. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving only the stark reality of their situation. They had broken free from Titan IX, but at what cost? Ziffer wouldn't stop hunting them. He had resources, connections, and an entire network of bounty hunters at his disposal. They had bought themselves time, nothing more. "We need a plan," Lyra finally said, breaking the silence. "A real one this time. Running isn't enough." Jason turned to Vanya. "You said Titan IX was just one piece of something bigger. What exactly are we dealing with?" Vanya exhaled, shifting her gaze to the holographic display before her. Ziffer isn't acting alone. Titan 9 is one of many installations under the control of an organization known as the Dominion Corps. They are a shadow syndicate, part corporate overlords, part galactic crime empire. They recruit the strongest, the fastest, and the most dangerous individuals from across the galaxy. The races, the fights, the gladiatorial games, they are all a front. They aren't just entertainment. They are recruitment trials. Jason clenched his jaw. Recruitment for what? Vanya hesitated, then brought up a series of encrypted files. The Dominion Corps is building an army. Cybernetic enforcers, genetically enhanced assassins, pilots, warlords, anyone they can shape into a weapon. The winners of Titan 9 were never meant to be free. They were meant to be converted. Jason felt a chill creep down his spine. He had suspected as much after hearing Cronus' story, but to have it confirmed was something else entirely. And let me guess, Ziffer is one of their top operatives. Vanya nodded. More than that. He's their architect. He oversees the conversion process, ensuring only the best make the cut. But he's just one piece. There are others, bigger players, more dangerous threats. Lyra leaned forward. So how do we stop them? Vanya gave a dry chuckle. You don't? No one has ever taken on the Dominion Corps and lived to tell about it. Jason narrowed his eyes. First time for everything. Vanya studied him for a long moment, then sighed. You're serious? Dead serious? Lyra smirked. Well, if we're going to be stupid, we might as well be all in. Jason turned his attention back to the controls. First things first, we need somewhere to lay low, regroup. Somewhere off the grid. Vanya pulled up a star chart, scanning for possible hideouts. After a moment, she pointed to a remote sector. There. The Veil Nebula. It's a lawless zone, full of smugglers, exiles, and outcasts. If there's any place Ziffer's reach doesn't extend, it's there. Jason adjusted their course, locking in the coordinates. Then that's where we're headed. As the ship hummed with renewed energy, Jason felt a flicker of something unfamiliar: hope. They were still fugitives, still being hunted, but for the first time since this nightmare began, they had a direction. A purpose. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The air in the outlaw station carried the scent of burnt metal, fuel, and desperation. Jason walked through the dimly lit corridors, his senses sharp, every movement measured. The station was alive with whispers of deals, hushed conversations of fugitives, and the constant hum of failing machinery. He knew places like this all too well, sanctuaries for the lost and the damned, where trust was a rare commodity and betrayal was always a breath away. He turned a corner into a crowded marketplace where traders haggled over contraband weapons, black market cybernetics, and stolen starship parts. He kept his hood up, blending into the sea of exiles, keeping his ears open for any mention of Ziffer or the Dominion Corps. Lyra had gone in a different direction, scouting for possible allies, while Vanya sought out secure communications to tap into Dominion transmissions. They all knew the clock was ticking. Hiding was not an option forever. Jason stopped at a vendor selling starship-grade plasma rifles. A large, four-armed merchant eyed him warily. You looking to buy, stranger? Or just admiring the goods? I need information, Jason said, lowering his voice. On the Dominion Corps. And I'm willing to pay. The merchant tensed, his top two hands flexing toward a concealed blaster under his stall. That's dangerous talk, friend. The Corps has ears everywhere. Jason slid a small pouch of credits across the counter. Then let's make sure they don't hear it. The merchant hesitated, then quickly pocketed the credits and leaned in. Word is, the Dominion's been stepping up their operations. They've lost assets recently, something about a failed conversion on Titan IX. It's got them rattled. And when they're rattled, they start making mistakes. Jason's pulse quickened. Where are they concentrating their forces? There's a relay station deep in the nebula, used to coordinate bounty hunters. If the core is looking for you, that's where the orders are coming from. Jason nodded. Thanks. The merchant grunted. Don't thank me. Just don't get me killed. Jason turned away, already forming a plan. A Dominion relay station meant encrypted messages, high-value targets, and if they were lucky, a way to disrupt the Dominion's hunt for them. Lyra navigated the winding pathways of the station, her eyes scanning for potential recruits. She knew they couldn't fight the Dominion Corps alone, and if this station had any warriors left with a grudge against the Syndicate, she had to find them. She spotted a group of mercenaries nursing drinks in a corner of a run-down cantina. They were scarred, battle-worn, and dangerous, exactly what she was looking for. Approaching the table, she met the gaze of their leader, a reptilian brute with an augmented eye. "You don't belong here," he growled. "Neither do you," Lyra shot back, sliding into a seat. "I hear the Dominion put a price on your head. If you want a shot at getting even, I have a proposition." The brute smirked. "I'm listening." Vanya worked quickly at a secured terminal, splicing through Dominion communications. Her implants glowed as streams of data filtered through her mind. She found an open channel pinging all bounty hunters in the sector. Priority target, Jason Statham, Lyra Vass, and Rogue Operative Vanya. Last seen near Vale Nebula. Capture or termination authorized. High reward. Her heart pounded. They had to move fast. She began rewriting the transmission, feeding false coordinates to throw Dominion pursuers off their trail. It wouldn't hold forever, but it might buy them enough time. Then she found something else, mention of a transport convoy moving high-value prisoners to an undisclosed Dominion research facility. The names attached to the manifest made her blood run cold. Cronus. Others from Titan IX. Survivors. Vanya severed the connection and bolted from the room. Jason, Lyra, and Vanya regrouped at the docking bay, each bringing critical intel. "The Dominion's relay station is deep in the nebula," Jason said. "If we can take it out, we cut off their ability to track us." Lyra gestured to the mercenaries she had recruited. "We've got fighters. They hate the Dominion as much as we do. They're in." Vanya's face was grim. "It's worse than we thought. The Corps isn't just after us. They are transporting survivors from Titan IX to a research facility. If we don't stop that convoy, they'll be converted just like Cronus." A heavy silence fell over the group. Then Jason clenched his fists. "Then we hit both. We take out the relay station, and we rescue the prisoners." Lyra nodded. "We split up. One team attacks the relay station to disrupt their operations, the other intercepts the convoy." Vanya hesitated. "This is an insane plan. The Dominion will retaliate hard." Jason smirked. "Good. Let them." The battle for freedom was no longer just theirs. The time to strike was now. The stars above the Vale Nebula burned bright, casting an eerie glow over the impending battlefield. Jason stood at the bridge of their stolen Dominion warship, eyes locked on the cluster of enemy vessels forming an impenetrable blockade around the relay station. Beyond them, the prison transport carrying Titan IX survivors was being escorted toward a classified Dominion facility. "Everyone in position?" Jason asked, gripping the console. Lyra's voice crackled through the comms. Ready and waiting. The mercenaries are prepped for the assault. Just say the word. Vanya chimed in from the warship's tactical deck. The Dominion still thinks we're another one of their patrol units. That won't last long. Jason exhaled sharply. Then let's not waste time. Initiate the attack. Explosions tore through the darkness as the first wave of attacks struck the Dominion's blockade. The mercenaries, piloting stolen and modified starships, swarmed the Dominion cruisers with relentless precision. Plasma cannons fired in synchronized bursts, tearing through the enemy's defenses. Jason pushed the warship into a sharp dive, skimming along the outer edges of the battle. We need to reach that transport before it jumps. Vanya, disable their FTL drives. Already on it, Vanya said, fingers dancing over the console. Jamming their signal now. They are locked in this sector. Lyra's fighter screamed past Jason's viewport, unleashing a flurry of missiles that shredded a Dominion frigate. That should even the odds a little. The Dominion was fighting back hard. Jason's warship rocked violently as enemy turrets locked onto them. Alarm systems blared, warning of incoming torpedoes. Shields down to 60%. Vanya called out. We can't take much more of this. Then let's finish it quickly, Jason growled. He grabbed the controls, angling the warship toward the relay station. If we take out their command hub, the whole fleet loses coordination. Lyra's voice came through with urgency. Jason, the transport is accelerating. They are making a break for it. Jason clenched his jaw. Vanya, how much time do we have? 2 minutes, maybe less. Jason made a decision. Split the attack. Lyra, take your squad and intercept that transport. Vanya and I will handle the relay station. Got it. Just don't die before I get back, Lyra said before cutting the channel. Jason turned to Vanya. Let's end this. The relay station loomed ahead, its defensive cannons firing wildly at the attacking mercenaries. Jason weaved through the debris field, dodging incoming fire as Vanya launched a precision strike. The station's shields flickered, then collapsed under the barge. We're going in, Jason said, gripping the controls. The warship crashed through the station's docking bay doors, sending shrapnel flying as they skidded to a halt inside the facility. Jason and Vanya emerged, blasters raised. Dominion troops scrambled to respond, but they were unprepared for the ferocity of the assault. Jason moved like a force of nature, taking down enemies with precise shots. Vanya hacked into the main terminal, rerouting control of the station's weapons. I can overload the core, she shouted over the gunfire. We need to go now. Jason shot the last soldier in their path and grabbed Vanya's wrist. Then let's move. They sprinted back to the warship as the station's alarms blared. Explosions rippled through the structure. The moment they lifted off, the relay station detonated behind them, consumed by a fireball that spread across the nebula. Meanwhile, Lyra's squad had reached the transport. Dominion fighters swarmed around them, but they pressed forward. Lyra dove straight into the firefight, her ship rolling between enemy fire, her guns never ceasing. Boarding now, she announced, ejecting from her fighter just as it crashed into the transport's hull, creating an opening. Inside, Dominion guards rushed to stop her, but she fought with ruthless efficiency. She reached the control room, slamming a guard's head into the console before overriding the ship's lockdown. The prisoners' former racers, warriors, and survivors from Titan IX burst free. Among them, Cronus, still scarred from his transformation but no longer under Dominion control. His eyes met Lyra's, filled with something she hadn't expected: gratitude. "Let's get out of here," she said, tossing him a weapon. Together, they fought their way to the escape pods just as Jason and Vanya's warship arrived. The Dominion transport was too damaged to survive. Jason's voice came through the comms. "Get everyone aboard. We're finishing this." One by one, the escape pods docked with the warship. Jason watched from the bridge as the last survivors made it. "We got them," Vanya confirmed. Jason turned toward the viewport. The Dominion's forces were in chaos, their chain of command broken. The battle was turning in their favor. "Let's put an end to this," he said. Vanya input the final command. The warship's main cannons locked onto the Dominion's last battleship. Jason fired. A beam of energy surged forward, tearing through the enemy vessel. With one final explosion, the Dominion fleet was no more. Silence settled over the battlefield as the surviving mercenaries cheered. The warship drifted through the wreckage, victorious. Jason turned away from the console, breathing heavily. They had won. Against all odds, they had won. He barely had time to react before Lyra was in front of him. Without hesitation, she grabbed his collar and pulled him into a fierce kiss. The adrenaline, the relief, the unspoken feelings between them all collided in that moment. When she pulled back, she smirked. "Took you long enough." Jason chuckled. "Worth the wait." Vanya rolled her eyes. "Can we celebrate after we leave Dominion space?" Jason turned back to the bridge, watching the stars stretch out before them. "Let's go home." The engines roared to life, and the warship vanished into the vast unknown, leaving behind the remnants of a war that had finally ended.